this idea that we've talked about before when it comes to lifting, shit that carries over from lift to lift, like from body part to body part, it's something like, I thought of it the other day, I was training someone and it just kind of came to me. It's pretty obvious when you think about it, so don't act like it's something groundbreaking for sure, but it's like when I talk to people about doing pull downs, I did a video about pull downs and how people are doing them wrong. It's not wrong if you're doing them wide, guys. If you're trying to pull wide and that's what you're doing. I'm just saying if you're doing pull downs to hit your lats, that's wrong. The more narrow we go, like I said, the more we frame out in front here. So from the back, my back isn't pinched. My back's here. As you guys can see, my back's wide open. So I'm flaring my lats and I'm pushing my shoulders and elbows in front of me. So I have this position when I start, right? So when I take this thing down, I've created a frame that's like my lats flaring out, my tricep, my forearm. I've created this frame that's almost like a square, if you made a square across my clavicle, where I'm sitting down into things and I'm posturing here, so I'm setting down. So when I pull down, I end up into this spot here, which is my end point, right? I go back up into my thing. If you think about it, this is also the frame for like a press. So this is the same frame as a Viking press, except we're standing with a Viking press. On a Viking press, my ending form on this is my starting form. My starting form is my ending form on the press, right? So if I'm doing this and I'm setting here, this same idea of framing here and here, if we go over here, 25 on, I don't want to work too hard today, basketball. I know your arms are sore from holding up that camera. You haven't done any work in 3 weeks. This is the same frame as I started with lat pull down. I sat down and I sat here. This is my beginning frame for this. There's no difference. I'm rolled forward and my back's wide open. I'm not pinched. I'm here, and when I go to press, so this is my ending position when I pull down. This is my starting position for my lat when I go to pull down. So it's the same thing, elbows in front, palms under here, head back. I'm rocking into my lat and pressing out. So the same motions, just in opposite directions, are the same framework for that lift, right? Just so you can like visually see that there's carryover from other body parts, and understanding that when you frame lifts or you get into certain exercises and you create a frame or a base, that base can carry over into other things. There'll be like other examples we'll show coming up in the future, not today because I don't want to. But just remember that when you guys are setting up stuff, like it could be the way you set up your back pull on something, say it's like a row. The way I set up my back pull is if I set myself up here and I'm rocking up, this is my end position, right, of my pull, but this is also the starting position of my bench. So if this turned into my bench now and I had a bar across me, I'm moving. If this is back again, it's pulling me out and I'm rocking up through again. So I'm pulling the bar, pressing the bar, pulling, all of them counteract each other, right? So just understand that like discovering movement and understanding movement across body parts isn't like, man, I gotta know what's good for back, I gotta know my setup for shoulders. Like it's like the carry over to all these body parts is the same, right? You'll even set up the same upper body wise, position wise to do a squat or a hack squat that you would for a lat pull down. Because I wanna be engaged here and I wanna be set and I don't wanna sink into my squat. So the frameworks, they stay the same across all lifts. So just start noticing these commonalities in what you're doing in your training and understand that like if I feel stable in this lift and I feel unstable in this lift, how can I think about other lifts that I would feel stable in that position and carry it over into this position? It could even be lower body stuff, guys. It doesn't have to be like anything to do with like a body part that's close by. So once you start playing with movement like that and understanding like that's how carryover starts to happen and that's how we start developing form and proper movement, you'll notice that your training will take a drastic step in the right direction, right? So it's the same as an easy example I've talked about before, is if I'm doing lateral raises, like we've talked about 1,000 times on this fucking channel, if I'm doing lateral raises here and I'm rocking up, my body is tilted forward. This is the exact same position I want to be in when I do a stiff leg deadlift and I want to come up. So I'm locked down on my shoulders, my lats are rounded over, I'm not here, I'm here, and I'm reaching down for the ground, up. My hip stays here, it doesn't move, it doesn't shift, it doesn't dip down. So when I come up, this is the lateral raise. So if I understand the mechanics of the base movement, the bottom movement of a stiff leg deadlift, if I know how to set my hip, now I know how to rise. And that can be for any lift that you're doing, right? Standing up. So everything carries over, everything has its place and complements the next thing you're doing, right? Or helps you out with that. So be aware of it and stop sucking at lifting. Every body part that people train, so they say they train legs, right? Obviously we all know your leg isn't one piece. It's not like one entire piece that I train was my legs. There's multiple muscles, multiple muscle groups and all this shit. So I've just noticed that people, when they say they're training back, they're like, I'm training back. And they're not thinking about back as the same as like their leg. Whereas like my leg has my hamstrings, it has my quads, it has my calves, it has my hips, it has my glutes, and all this stuff, right? So a lot of people, especially girls, they center their leg training around doing different areas of their leg, specifically. Whereas when people train back, they just train their back. So they don't think, today's my lat day, tomorrow is going to be my erector day, the next day is going to be my trap day, and then my rear delt day, and then like my, you know what I mean? Like there's no breaking down or like conscious thought of how to make back training better. And like we spoke about before, if you're a guy who's wide, like has a very wide back, there's probably a good chance that your mid back and your like mid trap and low lat and erectors are shit. Because you just done everything with shoulders and you develop this like huge like wide frame that it can't collapse because I can't move my shoulders. So I can't get this to happen to even be able to retract into my back, right? So I suggest for guys that are having problems with back, like if you're gonna split up any days during the week, or if you're gonna do this push-pull legs, have your second day that's a pull day be like, have the 2 pull days, have them be specific as to what you're trying to train for your back. So like, I'm gonna do traps and lats on this day. Next day I'm gonna do rear delts and fucking whatever it might be, right? Just so you guys understand that like these parts of your back are what make up the entirety of your back, but you're ignoring them for the sake of power and for the sake of moving weight and to like feel like you're doing something. Like loading 4 plates on a T-bar row and rocking at 3 inches is doing nothing for your back. It's doing a whole bunch for your ego and a whole bunch for your forearms, but it's really not causing much in your back other than like a massive stretch over, which we don't need any more stretch with you guys most of the time. We need you to be able to get into this position and rock up through things and be able to contract your back and squeeze things together, because it's not what you're doing, right? Your head's always staying forward. You're not tucking your head back, you're not lifting your chest. So I think that's one of the, if you wanted to make a big change in your back training, if you wanted to make a big change in your back training, you guys should be like, I'm gonna do one day that's, even if you turned it into like an overhead day and a row day. So I'm gonna do all overhead movements no matter what they are, no matter what angle they are, and then the next day I do nothing but rows. Dumbbell rows, seated rows, cable rows, machine rows, anything like that, right? So at least you're breaking up the variety and using that area of your back more. But like to arbitrarily go around training your back, being like, I'm training back today, and you see these guys, they're barbell rowing, whatever, 3 plates, snapping it up and down, doing all this stuff, and nothing's coming from it. It's like, guys, if nothing's coming from something, why are you repeatedly doing it? Like, I would not continue to keep doing something if it did nothing for me, especially after years of doing shit. But they're convinced like, oh, I just need to keep hammering it. It's just stubborn. It's like, no, you're just stupid. And you're not looking at things the right way. Stubborn and stupid are 2 different things. They're closely related, but they're not the same thing, right? So if you guys don't start addressing these weaknesses or addressing these areas, they're never gonna grow. And unfortunately for you guys, it's gonna require you working on shoulder mobility and lowering the weight. And more often than not, it's gonna be shoulder mobility, because you guys just like have no dexterity in your shoulder. You have no ability to like project your shoulders forward. You have no ability to pull them back. You have no idea to set them down, pull them up, around, move anything here like this. This for a bodybuilder is like this uncommon thing. Because if they do this, they go, it's all one motion. It's like my shoulder moves without me moving, right? So if I can't move my shoulder, this is a fake shoulder. If I can't move my shoulder in the socket, how am I expecting things to move and pull, right? It's like when you guys are doing back pulls, we'll do it over here. I'm also the maintenance guy around here, in case you're wondering. So, I had this issue come up when you're doing back. There's this idea like breaking into body parts and stuff like that. It's like, you guys are never gonna hit back properly unless you start to understand that back is about swinging and rocking. It's not about pulling, and it's not about how hard I can grip something. I train a girl, last week was a pro bodybuilder. I won't say her name. She's great though, but she literally couldn't continue the workout after doing the first set because her hands were so burnt out from gripping that we had to just do another body part because she's so used to using straps and everything that she can't hook, right? So that's another thing hindering your guys' shoulder mobility. If I don't have this ability to move my shoulders, I'm not pulling. I'm hooked on here. I can hook with these 3 fingers. I can just, so if I can't feel my back collapsing when that happens, my shoulders rolling, I'm never gonna be able to pull. If I'm doing this all the time, the difference is like I'm trying to pull this thing to me, so I'm pulling myself towards it. Do you know what I mean? So if I don't understand that I'm swinging here, so I'm rocking these shoulders, even if you guys start by just doing this and rocking, overreach, rock. So I'm putting chest pressure into the pad and rocking. When I finally do go to pull, I slide. There's at no point when I go to get momentum here, am I trying to grab my hands and pull this thing to me, which is what 98% of you guys do. You go like this and you pull the thing. And because you got it back far enough, you're like, oh, that did something. It's like, no, but the idea is to keep constant tension on your back. So we need to stretch and swing. So I need to swing and then relax out. Swing, relax out. So I want these hands loose and this arm loose to be able to be pliable to swing. Swing. So I'm bursting through chest pad, pulling through, right? When you guys change your angles on that, you can be underhand here, you can do the same thing. I want to get more mid back, lower back, I want to slide here. So I want to just swing. My grip is light. Slide. Slide. Instead of getting in here and just gripping everything for the fuck out of it and trying to pull it as hard as you can, right? So on your back days, loosen your grip and fucking try different angles. And try to move your fucking shoulders, guys. I don't know if we did that stretch on here. Did we do that stretch with the cable? So you can hook this to here or anything. Forward out here, my shoulders are pulled back. So this is a position like most guys can't get in without assistance. But even for most guys, you'll find them stuck here like this, guarding. They can't let their shoulder roll back. So if they're here, they can hold this position, they can walk out till they can't take tension, sit here and keep pushing that rib cage forward. Understanding that my shoulders can get this far back. I'm not stuck here all the time. I'm able to be here, right? So when you get here, you can start moving out and open and rolling here. Twist training, I think it is TWS, my boy on Instagram showed me this. But it works, right? So you stand here, do this before you guys do chest, before you do back, and get those shoulders used to retracting and being back here instead of here all the time. If you come here, it's because we want to be here. So I can put myself here if I want to be here for stuff, but I can also put myself here when I want to be stuff. I have the ability to be mobile in my shoulders and adapt to hit stuff, right? So
what's your recommendation? How long do you usually do that for the stretch?
Hold it for a minute or two. Just walk in and out of it, like walk back, take pressure off, walk forward. Just until you start to feel that like kind of searing ache stop a bit. You know what I mean? Just find your range and just let yourself relax. Start moving your shoulder around in that position. Walk forward, get more tension. Just play with it. You'll know when your shoulders are warm because when you let go of the band, your shoulders like, oh fuck. There's also like there's a study that came out recently. If you guys want to hear more about it or read more about it, Lane Norton speaks about it on his channel. Puts out a lot of good content. He's a super intelligent dude and like breaks down shit like from the perspective of someone who's actually a scientist and actually has a degree and has written. Yeah, like actually is one though. So I listen to him for a lot of stuff just because his take on stuff is very like no bullshit and just like kind of how I am. But as a science, I don't want to quote the study. I don't want to say what it is because I don't know. You guys can look at Lane's page and find it out. But it's basically they did a study evaluating, like giving people straight sets for a workout, supersets, drop sets. And they controlled all the variables, which had to be very like finite because in a study, things are very small. They're not like a broad spectrum. So they each did the same exercises, the same lifts, and they did them across the spectrum of those type style of training, right? And what they discovered through it, through like concluding just over like a broad spectrum, is that there's no real difference in training style that elicits more or less like muscle growth in like your average lifter. This is like for average guys, right? But what they did find that was the group that performed the most amount of hard sets had the most response, had the most growth. But the thing is, like, again, so these studies are great, one, they're not done on guys like who are bodybuilders or who are like enhanced or like actually really experienced lifters. But it's also like you can't, to define the term hard set is almost impossible. Because what's a hard set for me is not a hard set for you. And what's a hard set for me might not be a hard set for that guy. And I might only feel like a hard set is through intensity, not maximum load. So therefore I do supersets or triple sets or whatever, drop sets to bring the intensity up, and therefore every set that I do is hard. Because technically it's hard and I'm trying very hard to complete the set, right? Whereas as someone who's doing like a single lift or just like lifting like one lift at a time, their goal of like how hard the set is going to come from fatigue. It's also going to come from like weight. So if that weight was too light, I didn't try hard enough, the next set will be harder. I'll put more weight on it. It's technically harder. But did I get a better response from it? I don't know. And that's the thing, it's like with all these tests and all these people point to all these studies that are done and whatever, they can be great studies. It's like there's so many variables that are missing for you guys to draw a conclusion from that. It's like you can't interpret it as anything but just like, that's interesting. And it's gonna come back down to like, sadly, what has been working for people and what hasn't. And then finding out of that jumble of shit, which is a whole fucking like Atlantic Ocean of shit. Like out of that shit, you find what works for you because you try a lot of stuff, right? So it's like you need to understand, like, because so someone will read this study and they'll say, hey, all that matters is the amount of hard sets I do per workout. So I'm gonna make every set fucking hard. I'm gonna fucking max out my weight on every fucking set, or I'm gonna do like a drop set of the whole stack every fucking set, and therefore every set I did was harder, so my workout's better than her workout, better than his workout, and I'm gonna grow more. It's like, yeah, you can infer that, but you know that that'd be wrong, right? So it's like, a beginner lifter is gonna have a lot harder time lifting. They're gonna do a lot more hard sets for them, closer to failure, than someone who's experienced, right? So you guys have to understand when you're interpreting the data, interpret it with that frame of mind that like you've done what you've done to get here, especially as like someone who's heavily muscled or like very in good shape. Don't abandon what you're doing because you hear one thing that really doesn't apply to you. It applies to like a section of people that were very small and chosen and have nothing, visually look nothing like you and are athletically nothing like you, and experience-wise have nothing like you. So you can't infer data from that, right? So, but I go further into that saying like when you are exercising, every set to a degree should be hard, and they should gradually get more intense. I don't know if hard is the word. I think every set should get more intense or keep the same level of intensity. Like if it's a frequency line, we want to keep the same level of frequency. We want to like have blips of like going up a bit and then blips of going up a bit, and like I want to like keep rising that intensity, but I don't want to just shoot up. I'm not like a graph that's going diagonally straight up. I want to like creep my way up and slowly build that intensity to like this max intensity, because every intensity step along the way is harder than this intensity step before. So into essence, every set is harder, right? Because our intensity's gone up. So understand, if you look at things that way and understand like the overall workout was very hard for me because I had numerous amounts of sets where I was like right on the muscle. I wasn't using like my central nervous system or just like whatever muscle I could to push the weight. I was focused and isolating on muscle. Those sets are gonna be hard, and every one of them is gonna be hard. Like in the definition of hard, like you're gonna come to failure on every set. Especially with someone like me who trains you, I don't count the number of reps you do. I'm going strictly off what I see, the reaction from you. So if I can look at you and see like, yeah, he's gonna get like 2 more, and then it's gonna suck. That's my gauge of how it's going, right? So people need to get out of this state of mind and understanding that these terms that they come up with, they don't apply to everybody, and they're just general statements. Like they're not meant for you to take literally. And it's like, I don't want to see people in this gym like next week fucking bench pressing and they're putting their max on at the start. They're like going for every set as the hardest set I've ever done. It's like, there's someone that's going to do that though, for sure.